All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are live on all social media outlets. We're on Facebook, we are on Twitter, we're on YouTube. Welcome to the Green Over Everything post game show, talking Eagles. It's your boys Jonesy and Brown, alongside Javon Alford from Total Sports Live and DKNation.com. Gentlemen, it's week one. Gentlemen, it's week one, and the team that we cover then came out with a dub. We can start the season feeling good. 32-6 win, go down to Atlanta. Now, I understand that Atlanta it's a struggling team. Or a team kind of in the same position that the Eagles were in at the end of last season. It's a 4-win team with a coaching change, a lot of turnover, a lot of new faces. And we as fans, almost dropped my phone. Sorry. We as fans, we watch the preseason. We see the moves that the team has made. We see the draft picks that they made, the free agents that they made, and we kind of build ourselves up to a position where we can build some confidence, where we can have some confidence. Sometimes that's it's a good thing. Sometimes it's something that a positive thing. Sometimes that's the right thing to do. Other times we set ourselves up for failure. I'm gonna be real with you. I always find a way at the beginning of the season to convince myself that the Eagles are going to do something special this year. The Eagles are going to do something big this year. I mean that's just natural. That's just something I do every year. But the truth of the matter is, I had nothing to really hang it on because you didn't see much this offseason. Saw Jalen Hurts 2-3 plays. Barely saw Devontae Smith. Didn't see Miles Sanders at all. Defense barely played. Slade barely played. Nelson barely played. Defense didn't show you anything. Defense was about as vanilla as grade school cafeteria ice cream all preseason. We come out, game starts. Falcons march down the field their first two drives. Eagles were able to hold them to field goals, but couldn't get off the field on third down. Seemed like Matt Ryan was getting whatever he wanted. Ridley had us out here looking like Julio Jones who? And we were worried. There was cause for worry. I was worried. Mike Jones, I know you don't think like me. You don't you keep the panic button on the other side of the room. I'm going to you. What were your thoughts? First two drives of the game for Atlanta.
All right, so you're going to me, and I thought I was going to have to cut you off at some point. But you went to me before you got to the point where I was going to have to cut you off.
So I dropped that pass too early.
That's cool. It's cool. It works because we were almost there. I felt it coming. I don't know if you saw the looks on my face starting to shift gears. I saw it coming, so this was a good time.
Okay, because what you got?
Because the two biggest NFL overactions we're going to get after week one are that Sean Payton fixed Jameis Winston and that the Eagles are a playoff team. Those are going to be the two biggest overreactions around the NFL after week one. Because Jameis Winston, he's a career bad decision maker. Let's get that out the way right now.
Yeah.
LASIK or not, he's a career bad decision maker. And it's going to take more than one game to make me think otherwise. We've seen him win games before and look good in streaks before. It never lasts before, so you have to prove otherwise. Now to our Eagles, the biggest questions about this team were that we saw nothing from the defense, so we had no idea what to expect. And to your question, those first couple drives, we're watching the Falcons march right down the field, make it look easy, hold them to 3 the first time, And then the second time they come out and they're marching right down the field again, making it look easy. And we're talking about this defense like this isn't looking good. Matt Ryan scrambling for 9 yards on third down to get the move the chains. Like Matt Ryan, he doesn't run. But all this is going on, and then the defense holds in the red zone again. And then after that, the defense wakes up. And Atlanta gets into Eagles territory only one more time for the rest of the game after that. Like, after those first two drives, they crossed the 50 one more time the entire game. And
that's crazy.
So the defensive question, we're starting to see answers. It seems like a bend, don't break. Don't get beat with the big play, and we can tighten up in the red zone. If we can trade touchdowns for field goals philosophy. And offensively, the biggest question was not any of the IQ or intangibles of the quarterback, Jalen Hurts, but the biggest single attribute a quarterback could have, arm talent, and more specifically, consistent arm talent. And one game doesn't answer that question. Yes, he threw better than 75%. I want to say 76 or 77%, actually, 27 to 35 for the game. So he looked very good. But the question of consistency requires a stretch of 4, 5, 6 games, tougher competition. This was the first season, JB, you did not hear me start the season by telling you the Falcons are frauds. You know why?
Because they are who they are now. I mean,
because they're bad now.
Yeah.
They're no longer pretending to be good. They're just bad now. So the Eagles got a good opportunity to break in some new things, test some new things. But let's be honest, they were sloppy today.
Yes.
A lot of false starts, a lot of third and shorts that get turned into third and longs, third and intermediates that get turned into third and longers because false start, not from one player, but multiple players across the line. You didn't play a preseason much. You didn't get to develop that timing with the crowd noise. The defense, especially on those first couple drives, you see the effects of starters not playing much. The tackling is sloppy. There's a lot to work on. And if you were playing a good team today, things might have looked different. But you played a bad team and you handled your business. So there's reason to be optimistic about the future of this team. But let's not jump out the window with no parachute yet, talking about Eagles Super Bowl and Jalen Hurts MVP. I won't name any names, but let's not jump out that window yet.
Well, look, and before I turn it over to Javon to get his thoughts on the game, I mean, look, it wouldn't be Philly. We wouldn't be fans if we didn't overreact a little bit. You know that, and I know that. So you see, I had to break out the Super Bowl champions hat because they're 1-0 right now. So I'm predicting Super. So they're just one step. They're one step closer to another Super Bowl. Now, granted, look, but nonetheless, I feel like realistically speaking, this was a good start. Week 1 can only be week 1.
Mm-hmm.
It's you can't make this out to be more than what it is, because they did what you want a team to do. You did what a team with reasonable expectations to do. They went out and they handled a bad team.
Mm-hmm.
One of the first tests that you give a team when you're trying to figure out what you have is how do they play against bad teams? Are they going to be one of those teams that play down to their competition, or are they going to be one of those teams that crushes their competition? Next week is next week. You and I, the three of us will sit down and we'll talk more about the matchup with the 49ers later. But as far as this week, going on the road and beating a team. I mean, look, it's not like. I mean, it's not like in the past when you have a team coming off a playoff run, when you have a team that's coming off 10-win, 11-win season. Team won 4 games last year. Coach fired. Starting quarterback traded. You don't know what you have in Jalen Hurts. So, yeah, Atlanta is what they are. They are what they are. This isn't the Atlanta of the past. This isn't, late 20s, early 30s Matt Ryan anymore. This isn't Julio Jones, Devontae Freeman Falcons anymore. I'll take this win. I like after getting past those first 2 drives. I was encouraged by what I saw up front. Yes, there was a lot of sloppiness. A lot of false start penalties by guys you wouldn't expect to get false start penalties. But I'll take it. I understand. Look, anything past, hey, it was a good week 1 win. Nobody cares about that. But I'll take it. Now, let me turn it over to Mr. Alford. Yes. You watched the game with the rest of us. Mm-hmm. Somewhere in between, hey, this team's going to the Super Bowl and this team's going 1-16. Where do you stand?
I mean, for me, I always thought and said, even looking like back in July, even in August when we was getting through the preseason and coming into the regular season, I always said the Eagles were better than what they, what people perceived them as, what they have on paper. A lot of people predicted this team, to be, and it still could happen, right? They could still finish in the top 10 of the draft. It wouldn't be surprising if things just go left, like we saw last year. Things went left, like really quickly, that nobody saw it coming. But for me, I always thought that this team was better than what they showed on paper. And, for people that ever predicted them to only finish with going under 6.5 wins, I never thought that was the case. I thought this was legit a 7 or 8 win team at best. So that's where I felt at in the middle between that. I'm not on Uber Super Bowl range, and that's okay. We got time for that. And I'm not even, on the range of, they're going to be 1-16 and it's all over and Nick Sirianni can't coach. I mean, for what this team did today, you have to be encouraged because we didn't really see, like you said, we haven't seen the starters in a full capacity. We haven't seen them, playing, for a full 60-minute game. And like you said, the defense did not look good to start off the game, but you do give them credit for not breaking inside the red zone. It don't matter if teams drive down there. That's an issue because there was some sloppy tackling on the first and second levels. But if you can hold, your opponent to field goals, you're always going to give give yourselves a chance to win. And for the Eagles defense, I think they were just all caught off guard because I don't think no one thought that the Falcons was going to come out in an up-tempo style of game. As much as we've seen the Falcons play over the years and years with Matt Ryan under center, we never think they're going to come out just up-tempo, move the ball, boom, boom. And for them, it probably was a shock, whoa, these guys are coming out. Because, again, we didn't know what to expect from Arthur Smith. From Arthur Smith, we remember back when he was Tennessee, Derrick Henry. So you see that. And then offensively, I mean, you couldn't ask for better with that first, for that first score or just how they were getting the ball. Nick Sirianni, I think, did something that a lot of people wanted, people to see what Doug Peterson do, which was get your playmakers in space, get your wide receivers in space. Not everything has to be, let's all shoot him down the field. We got speed with Quez Watkins and, Jalen Rager. Let's just all burn them down the field. No, it doesn't have to be that way. Mm-hmm. Get guys on a bubble screen. When was the last time we saw the Eagles call 2 or 3 bubble screens in a row? And they just work just like that.
Probably not since Westbrook or Shady McCoy.
No, let's be honest. When's the last time you saw the Eagles run a wide receiver screen that worked, period?
Yeah, that's true.
That's true.
last
Like
year, right?
they didn't work. Like the wide receiver screen did not work under Doug Peterson.
No.
The screen passes to the running backs were a struggle under Doug Peterson. They were a hallmark of Andy Reid's offense.
Mm-hmm.
Chip Kelly made some use of them.
Right.
They did not work under that part of Doug Peterson's offense. Did not work.
I wanted to ask you. I really wanted to ask you. Once the Eagles started, and they kind of followed suit with Atlanta. Atlanta comes out, they go no huddle. Eagles come out and go no huddle. I wanted to ask you, like, how much, like, Chip Kelly flashbacks were you having when the Eagles went no huddle?
None.
Like,
None.
None.
Because it's not a lifestyle.
Here you go.
It's live with it.
It's situation when it's situational.
Yes.
It works. Like you got that's the thing. Any coach, like there's a time and place for everything. To be aggressive, to go up tempo, to slow it down, and you have to understand this. You can't just be one way, full throttle all the time.
Yep.
And that's what the part that Chip Kelly didn't get. It's not that there's no use for tempo. There's a lot of use for tempo, but you have to know when.
I think honestly, and there were a lot of things that I liked about this offense, and I feel like honestly for the first time in a very long time, for the first time since Chip Kelly, and this is not a pat on the back to him, or this is not, but I feel like when Chip Kelly took over this offense, you understood and you saw that the offense was being run differently than Andy Reid.
Yes.
This was not Andy. When Chip Kelly ran the offense, this was not Andy Reid's offense. You saw that. It was obvious. Right or wrong, fair or foul. And I feel like that's what I saw today. Because I feel like when they brought in Doug Peterson, and Doug did some things on his own. There were some Doug elements. I know people want to make it seem like Doug just ran this carbon copy Andy Reid offense.
Mm-hmm. Not at all.
No, but what I'm saying that's kind of what the expectations were, and even though there were distinct differences, I think there were people who kind of who chose to lump those in together. Mm-hmm. But nonetheless, I feel like what I saw wasn't Doug. From successful wide receiver bubble screens, from getting your receivers open, working to your quarterback's strengths.
Yes.
To build confidence.
Well, part of that, I think part of that, of course, is working to your quarterback strengths. But I also think a huge part of that is Sirianni's background as a wide receivers coach and understanding that the type of receiver personnel he has. You've got Smith, Rager, and Quez Watkins out there. These aren't big physical receivers. These are quick, fast, shifty receivers who, due to, I think, thanks in large part to experience with guys like T.Y. Hilton with the Colts, you have an understanding of how to scheme those type of receivers into space to let them maximize their ability to so you don't have to be looking for the home run play, as we were saying earlier, downfield all the time. There are other ways to utilize speed and let the speed doesn't always mean a 9 route. I can get you 3 yards away from the line of scrimmage and let you do the work afterwards.
There you go.
And I think Sirianni's background with working with wide receivers is a huge plus, especially with this group that I think is very talented, but is also very young.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I agree with that. And I think, and what Jonathan said, harping on, about like the offenses and this, you can even say Sirianni's offense doesn't even replicate anything that Frank Reich did in Indianapolis. Because a lot of people, made the connection like, all right, maybe he's going to come in from Indy and kind of do what, Indy does, which, power football, things like that. It was a completely whole different thing. Like you guys said, he's working towards the quarterback strength. You're seeing design runs. You're seeing, inside zone runs. We're seeing, something you seeing like almost like, and it's not to say that the Eagles didn't play like football to be played in like 2021 last year, but they kind of play this. You could tell that they were playing football the way the game's supposed to be played. You look at what Sirianni brings, you look at what the offensive coordinator Shane Steichen brings, being in LA with the Chargers and Justin Herbert. You saw more, I think Hurts was only under center, I think like for 5 snaps, and the rest was, in the shotgun. For like 61 snaps. So you see like the evolution of, again, when was the last time we saw the Eagles, run a 5 wide set, nobody in the backfield, and you have 4 wide receivers, and you got Kenneth Gainwell out there posing mismatch problems. It's different.
Mm-hmm. And honestly, real quick, because I want to talk about this Gainwell Sanders combination. I like that.
Because they run the ball.
Yes.
And what I was actually about to say was that as we got this far into the conversation and hadn't mentioned Miles Sanders yet, who the first couple drives for the Eagles had a couple effective carries, but they didn't necessarily go to him a lot. But and I found myself saying, he looks decent. I hope I see him in the game plan more today.
Yep.
And as the game progressed, I got exactly what I wanted. There was some balance to the game plan.
There you go.
Like, they used the pass to set up the run, no doubt. That's 2021 football. But they didn't fall in love with the pass to the point where they forgot to run the ball, which is what we would see sometimes from Doug Peterson. Like, he would use the pass to set up the run, but then forget to run.
Yep.
And honestly, it's what you needed, because it also wasn't so much. They ran, but they were still aggressive.
Yes.
Whereas you look at sometimes it seemed like Doug would get a lead and start running, but not to the point, but not be aggressive. And allow Atlanta or allow whoever his opponent to get back into the game. Like, the game seemed out of reach once it got 22-6.
But I never felt like the Eagles took their foot off the gas.
That's the point I'm trying to make. That's the point that I'm trying to make. Whereas, and I feel like that's something that was different from the last couple of years with Doug, where you truly felt like Doug was taking his foot off the gas.
When it was 22-6 in the fourth quarter, the Eagles were still on the attack. Yes. They were still the predator. They didn't just try to protect their kill. They were still on the hunt.
No, exactly. And honestly, for me, that's all I need in week 1. I saw a better looking team than the team that ended last season. I saw my quarterback look like a NFL quarterback. He made plays when I needed him to make plays. He got the running game. He made plays and he didn't make mistakes. Didn't make stupid mistakes. Got sacked. Didn't hold on to the ball too long. Was able to get the ball out quickly. Make crisp plays. Run the offense. Pull the ball in and run at time. That run play, that RPO was looking crisp today.
Definitely have a quarterback that can run.
Exactly. That RPO was looking
Nick Foles RPO.
But see, the thing with Hurts though, when he broke the pocket or rolled out, his eyes are still downfield. It's Russell Wilson, like with the way he keeps his eyes downfield, still looking to make the play with his arm first, so his receivers stay engaged. They keep making their plays, and it's not just the defense like, he's outside the pocket, go hit him now.
Right. You can't step back.
You got to stay in your coverage, stay in your lanes, and wait for him to commit. And at that point, a lot of times it's too late.
Let me shout out real quick. I want to shout out my OG, Steph Joyner, who was on the post game, and he made a point about Jalen Hurts and just the reads that he makes during games. And he says he's not completely seeing the field yet. Like, that's just something that will improve as he continues to play.
With any quarterback, that comes with experience.
But basically what he was saying was, yes, he is looking to the point that you made, Mike, he's looking downfield. He's not seeing the whole field yet. But when he gets to the point that he does, you build him up, you coach him up to the point that he does. This ball could be nice. This ball could be dangerous. And that's all you need.
And it's not. And he didn't make every play out. There were plays that left out there that could have been made. Like there was one play that sticks out to me that it was actually ended up being ruled a catch. It wasn't a catch, but it was ruled a catch by Ertz down the right sideline. That if Hurts actually lays that ball out a little further or a little earlier, and you can hit Ertz in stride, he keeps running.
Yep.
So, but it's a little late or a little underthrown, depending on how you call it, timing or arm strength, which one you say it was. But with that one, like with a throw like that, and that's just stuff you see from a young quarterback you learn with experience. But so even in the big win, there as a coach, as the coaching staff has to be looking at it. We won, we look good, and we still have coachable moments.
Right.
We still have teachable moments. So there's nothing to get comfortable with between the penalties, missed tackles, couple plays left to be made on the field.
Right.
I don't think if for week one, a new coaching staff could ask for a lot more.
No.
Yeah.
Oh, no. A tough win on the road where your offense built momentum as the game went on.
As did your defense too.
As your defense took some shots early. Finished a whole lot better than they started. But in the end, I mean, to me, that's what you want. And let's talk a little bit more about this defense. I think, honestly, we were worried about the pressure that they were going to get early. Some questionable tackling early. Some failures to get pressure early. I'm sitting there, I'm watching the game with my dad, and he's like, I thought we fired Jim Schwartz. I thought Jim Schwartz bounced. I thought Jim Schwartz was out of here. I see them still failing to, and honestly, I'm sitting here and I feel like as training camp changes, the way teams handle training camp, I feel like you see defensive coordinators, you see head coaches kind of downplay how much contact that they have in these practices, how much emphasis needs to be put on tackling. And me having not played organized football since Pop Warner, who am I to tell an NFL coach how to prepare? It's like, look, he says he doesn't need it. Who am I to tell? Nah, I think you do.
And I think, but that's the thing. Like, I think overall, for the health of the players, long run in a 17-game season now, it's not the worst thing to pull back the throttle a little bit in the preseason. I just believe that if you're going to do that, some of those kinks you work out in the preseason really get worked out in games 1 and 2 and 3.
Yep.
It's just a trade-off you're going to have to make. And it's not necessarily the worst thing, especially in a longer season. And if you have a good coaching staff, you do the best you can to work as much of that out in training camp as you can. But as we all know, there's some things you just can't simulate in practice.
Yep.
That's true.
Crowd noise on the road is one of them.
And honestly, I feel like all you can ask from your coach is that, you live and you learn. It seemed that his thought process coming out of training camp was, yes, you're losing. You lost the preseason game. There are only 3, and your starters didn't get a lot of reps in those 3 preseason games. But you had, 3 organized team practices?
Yeah, joint practices, yeah.
Joint practices. And it seemed like in this training camp, Nick Sirianni put the emphasis on those joint practices and more emphasis on the joint practices and the reps that you got in those joint practices over actual preseason games. And I don't know if that's right or wrong. I don't know if he still holds on to that, if he'll still hold on to that philosophy going into his second training camp and his third training camp and so forth. But you saw the rust early, especially with the defense. But you saw adjustments as well. This was a team that was able to they took advantage of that young guard.
Yeah.
And they just overwhelmed dude.
Oh yeah, by the time the defensive line put it in gear, and Hargrave and Cox and Ridgeway, and those guys who put it in gear and started really ratcheting up the pressure, it was a wrap.
Yeah.
I was honestly sitting there, of course, wanting the Eagles to win, but at the same time, I started to have a level of concern for Matt Ryan's health.
Yeah.
There was one hit he took. He just laid there for a second. I was like, these guys are trying to end his season. Like, when they started getting to him, they smelled blood. They were like sharks smelling blood in the water.
Mm-hmm.
And they went on to put it into attack mode, and that was it for that offense.
But I like the rotations.
Mm-hmm.
Because I feel like you truly got to watch how deep that front four is. Whereas they're getting pressure, and you're watching Fletcher Cox on the bench. You're watching Brandon Graham on the bench. I saw that starting front four. I saw Ridgeway, Cox, Sweat, and Graham. And my first thought was, oh man, we're about to watch the phasing out of Barnett. But he got in there too. He got good, he got good minutes.
Quality snaps. Yeah.
Quality snaps. My initial thought when I saw that Barnett wasn't starting was like, oh man, here, this is the beginning of the end. I wish him well in his future endeavors. Break out the Craig Mack. You won't be around next year. But he got quality snaps.
Mm-hmm.
And they just overwhelmed. This was a game won in the trenches. Once the offensive line started getting past those stupid
let me ask you a question though, as you bring up the offensive line. Let's talk about somebody who will be around next year.
Mm-hmm.
What did you think of Jordan Mailata, the 6'8", 380-pound, newly inked, multi-million-dollar man? Former 7th round pick. Howie's a genius.
I will say this. I'm not quite. I don't want to misquote the person because they made it there was a real good tweet about it. And they was like, basically, finding your future starting left tackle from a seventh round pick.
7th round pick.
7th round pick in Jordan.
What could be a star left tackle?
Yes. That makes up for the mistake that is Andre Dillard. Just like finding Jason Kelsey in the late rounds kind of made up for the mistake that was Danny Watkins.
And the thing is, though, you don't necessarily call Andre Dillard a mistake yet because he had a decent training camp. Mm-hmm. And over the next year or two, he could easily move into one of those other starting positions on the offensive line where guys are starting to age. Maybe you flip him to the right. Maybe you flip him to the right side if Lane Johnson moves on. Maybe he takes over for Say Malu.
Mailata just turned out to be a stud.
Mm-hmm.
And you see, that's the dangerous part. You let Howie find one star in the 7th round.
He was already the smartest guy in the room.
Exactly. This man gonna be trying to make stars out of every 7th. Who we get in the 7th round this last? That's
just about almost all the draft picks made the roster this year. So
Howie's a genius. He's a genius. If you don't believe me, just ask him. But nonetheless, he kept Jalen, for the most part, he kept Jalen Hurts clean. Looked like a start. You basically, you don't want to hear his name getting called. That's how you know he did a good game. If you go through a whole game and you don't hear Jordan Mailata's name, then you know he had a good game.
Yeah, there was the one false start penalty on him that I remember.
Yeah.
The one that was actually on him. There were a couple on Sayamalo and Lane and some other guys, but I remember one specifically on Mailata. Other than that, he had a clean game as far as I can recall.
The whole offensive line had,
the lines on both sides of the ball, once they got going, they controlled the game.
Mm-hmm.
Javon, your thoughts on the offensive line? What stood out to you the most? Even if it's not the offensive line, what was your biggest takeaway from this game?
I mean, like you said, when you look at the lines, like we said, football is won in the trenches, and I think that's where the Eagles had the biggest, overwhelming, that's where their strength was. Their strength was in both offense and defensive lines. Like, yeah, the Falcons were able to get some pressure with Grady Jarrett, but that was it. There was nobody else outside of Grady Jarrett that was getting across that Eagles offensive line. So I thought, just having both of the lines outside of the false starts, playing really well, really opening up the lanes in the second and third levels when they were running the ball and really just start knocking dudes down. I mean, that's what you want to see. I mean,
it was one run you see Kelsey downfield just balling guys.
Right. And that's what they want to do. They want to just start. They don't want to pass block all the time. They just want to go knock dudes around.
Yo, Kelsey was a grown man on that one run. He pancake like 2-3 dudes. Get off me! You want some here? You get off me! I'm just like, yo, they out here eating. Or even
Mailata on the touchdown pass to Jalen Reagor, who we didn't even know he had the ball for a minute. The camera was faked out so bad, nobody didn't know who had the ball. Before you know, you see Reagor.
Reagor popped loose and he's running to the end zone, and Mailata leading the way, clearing the way for him.
And if that offensive line can stay healthy, that's where this team can really go far. And I think, like you mentioned, like you said, Dillard's not a bust yet, but being able to have guys like Mailata come in last year and really get reps in a season that was really considered a lost season. This team on both sides of the ball, because we even saw last year when guys got hurt on the defensive line, they were able to get reps. So now they come into this season, maybe in the starting role, maybe getting more snaps. They're not so green. It's kind of just like, oh, okay, I know what my role is.
It kind of allows you to address your depth issues that you had last year.
Right, exactly. So I think that's a big key, and like we mentioned, also just running the running game. Just being committed to running the football and just saying like whatever's working. Like we're not going to rotate like 3 or 4 guys in and just say, all right, Miles Sanders is going to run, Gainwell's going to run, Boston Scott's going to run. It's like, no, like we're actually going to you two are going to run the ball, and you gotta like how they use the running backs in the passing game, to make it effective. And it was, also nice to see, it was surprising. I was surprised to see JJ Arcega-Whiteside on the first offensive drive on the field. I didn't see that happening, but he played his role well.
He played his role well, and he blocked. Yeah.
But you need that though.
You absolutely need that from your.
You know who your playmakers are. Is Watkins, Smith, and Reagor. Somebody else has to play those roles, and you saw that, and it worked as well as you can. Now you just hope that they carry that momentum at home against San Fran, who did not look good in their game against Detroit.
No, they did not. And honestly, I feel like that's how you build up some momentum. If you come home and if you can build on this week's win, and I'm not sure how much, I tried to watch as much of the San Francisco game as I could, so you don't know exactly what you have in them, because like we've said, it's week 1.
It's week. Teams are still rounding into form. It's early.
But you're coming home. San Francisco has to start the season with 2 road games. They start the season. You fly out to Detroit. You come home. Now you got to fly out to Philly. Play 2 1 o'clock games. Your team with some momentum. You've had some. Your offensive line had some success. Your defensive line had some success. Your secondary was able to get some success as well. Your punter
they didn't give up the big play, and that was the biggest thing we talked about last year. They
didn't give up the big
play. Burnt for the big play over the top, and that did not happen against a good wide receiver in Calvin Ridley.
Special also came to play.
Yes,
special
is huge.
How many? I mean, what? Was it 3 straight possessions that they put him in
inside the 10?
Inside the 10.
That makes a difference.
Yes.
Huge difference. Good job by the rookie punter.
Pin them back. Make that defensive line, let that defensive line just eat and get all types of pressure. You're getting pressure with 4 people because they still didn't blitz a lot.
They did. They didn't.
So
they blitzed a lot. But
I have a question for you guys, though. Slight change of gears. A little question for you guys. I know it's way, 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 way too early to actually answer this question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Given what Jamar Chase has looked like so far, did Howie, even though he traded back, end up making out with the best receiver in this year's draft?
Honestly, I feel like that could. Devontae Smith just looked like a grown man.
He's a player. No questions asked. He's a player.
He's a player, and he's a caliber player that we have not seen the Eagles go out and get in a very long time. So Carson Wentz, although he was was it a D2, not D2, FCS, but Carson Wentz looked the part. Quarterback.
He was stud. He had stud talent.
Donovan McNabb was probably one of the better quarterbacks in college football when the Eagles went up and got him. He looked the part. So it's not like the Eagles have not gone out and gotten a top tier quarterback. You look at Miles Sanders, you look at Shady McCoy. Okay, they've done that at the running back position.
They have a blueprint they like to follow at the running back position that's been fairly successful for them.
Yes. But one thing they have not is going out and gotten the best wide receiver in college football. In our
when's the last time you look back and think, yeah, they got the best receiver in that draft?
When was the last time the Eagles went out and drafted a Heisman? Here's a clue: none of us were alive.
Or SEC player.
Or Alabama, an Alabama guy. They went out and got an Alabama wide receiver. You draft a guy from Alabama, that's not a draft pick. That's a free agent.
You give me you give me an Alabama, LSU, Clemson wide receiver, they're pretty much a proven commodity.
Yes. And honestly, I'm not going to sit here and act like a Josh Sweat and a Derek Barnett are better than Jamar Chase. But what I'm saying is seeing the pressure that they were able to get, seeing the performance of this defensive line, and then also watching what Devontae Smith was able to do in this game. I'm not going to sit. Today wasn't a week to say, darn, we should have got Jamar Chase.
Oh, it's definitely at no point during this preseason since Devontae Smith came back from his little knee tweak early have I thought Jamar Chase on the field has looked like a better player. He's had issues with drops during the preseason. Hasn't been. I don't believe that he was extremely productive today. I have to go back and look at the numbers again. But when I was checking in early, he hadn't been extremely productive early in that game. So I know, like I said, it's way too early, only week 1 into the regular season to actually ask that question. But with Chase, Waddle, whose name we haven't heard much at all throughout the preseason into the beginning of the year, and Smith, those guys going at the top, I think for me, Smith is the early leader to end up being the best receiver out the group, at least for this year.
Yeah, no, I would agree. I think Smith, I think, and when you look at the teams that drafted each of the wide receivers, you can kind of tell the kind of fit and mold that they were looking for. Like Cincy, you already had T Higgins the last year. Then they got Tyler Boyd, so they're looking for that bigger wide receiver to kind of fit and complement. But when you look at what Chase does well, what Waddle does well, what Devontae Smith does well, it's different. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and it starts
Yeah, they're
with
all different players.
right, and it starts with his route running. Like that's the key right there. Like it that and I think like yeah, you might have like blazing speed, but if you can't run a route that well or can't know how to get guys off the line of scrimmage or make them at least step back, then you're not going to do much. We see many one trick ponies coming in the NFL that can just run past guys and blow past them, but they
Now,
have a hard time running a
Smith
route.
was regularly open today. He
Right.
runs good, solid routes.
Exactly, and I think we saw that on the first touchdown, on that touchdown throw. Like that was a really good route.
That wheel route out the slot to the outside.
Yes, and Perch put it where only he could get it. And then even when he was making a couple of catches, when he was just that sixth sense of okay, let me tap my foot and drag at the same time. Instead of it was just
those things you see from polished veteran receivers.
Exactly.
You were seeing from him in week 1 of his rookie year.
Exactly. And that's what, and honestly, I feel like they're kind of breaking a mold. Whereas I think to an extent, Jalen Hurts is what you would consider the athletic quarterback. And I feel like too often when you have that athletic quarterback, offense, especially when you're installing a new offense, when you have a young coach, when you have you make a coaching change, new regime comes in, you want to let the offense kind of rest on the quarterback's athleticism and then focus on the defense. You get your defense right, and then you let you come back and you start building around your quarterback. Why are you raising your hand like you wouldn't just cut me off any other time?
Because it seemed like the fun thing to do.
Go ahead, man. Make your point.
So, to your point, though, with Jalen Hurts, I think calling him an athletic quarterback is a bit of a misnomer. Not because he's not athletic, but because, as we were discussing earlier, he's in that Steve Young, Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson mold that you're mobile and you roll out, but you're mentally still looking to make the play with your arm, as opposed to the Mike Vick, Cam Newton, Lamar Jackson. I made that first read, it wasn't there. I broke out the pocket. I'm going to get these 20 yards myself.
Okay.
Even RG3 fit into that latter mold, and like a guy like Donovan McNabb, the best thing that happened to him in his career was Andy Reid would literally not allow him to run those first couple years. But Jalen Hurts has that quarterback instinct, that presence mentally, where he knows he has his legs as an option, but they're not his primary option.
Almost like Russell Wilson, like you mentioned earlier. They don't have to run. Like I can just find somebody, escape the pocket, and hit somebody wide open, and keep the ball moving.
Russell Wilson, Steve Young, a younger Aaron Rodgers, those guys all had that mobility to them, but it was eyes downfield. I'm going to keep it as a threat and use it to keep the defense honest. And when I need to, I'll get those 10 yards for the first down. But I'm going to win this game with my arm and with my brain. So
I think that's how you win the game, and that's only going to help, that's only going to help him continue to progress, as a quarterback, because, he was not, and I think I saw it on one of the pregame shows. It was like, he's going against, a very experienced defensive coordinator and DPs are going to throw all these different things at him and blah, 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 blah. And, he didn't look phased. You can just and I think we talked about this before, just his poise, like he just didn't look like bothered, when you can just tell some quarterbacks are just like, yo, like, I don't know what's going on out here.
Well, the thing is,
headlights look like,
with a mobile quarterback, you generally want to play zone defenses.
Right.
But against the read option and then a quarterback who keeps his eyes downfield, you kind of need to be in a man defense. So it's a pick your poison situation where, because as long as he's throwing the ball consistently, if you can't sit back and say, well, he's not going to throw the ball accurately, so we'll force him to beat us with his arm. If he can play like he did today, and you can't, and teams can't do that, if a team says beat me with your arm and he's able to beat you, he's a franchise quarterback, because the intangibles were never the question.
Right.
It was the arm that was the question.
Yeah.
A lot of guys, it's the other things. You see the arm is there, but you question his intangibles.
No, you're right.
From Alabama to Oklahoma to now, Hurts' intangibles were never in question. I think during the game I sent the text, I was comparing him to Tim Tebow with a better passing ability. Because Tim Tebow, coming out of Florida, all the intangibles were there. Guys believed in him. They rallied. They played for him.
Right.
He just couldn't put the arm talent together consistently enough to keep a job as a quarterback. In the first 3 quarters of the game, he wouldn't hit a throw.
Right.
But
in that fourth quarter,
he's giving everything.
At fourth quarter,
Jalen Hurts was able to, through 4 quarters, throw the ball accurately. And if he could do that, to combine with all those other intangibles, you're really looking at somebody who has the potential to be special.
Yeah.
And watching what I saw today makes me understand why Carson Wentz felt threatened.
Yeah, no. Yeah, you can see it. And I mean, I think I was reading a story on the Enquirer, and I think they were interviewing Marty Morningwig, and he talked about working with Hurts last year and just saying how he just has that like it factor about him. Like, he's not really like I think it was like saying like he's not really a talkative guy and like rah rah rah, but like he just something about how he carries himself and how he goes about his business on the field. Like, he just has that thing, like you mentioned, those intangibles that you just can't teach. Like, either, and we see it in sports all the time, right? Either you have it or you don't have it. And it's like, if you have it, you got to hope that they have the other part, the talent, because if you have the intangible, the talent, then you got something really, really special. And like you said, maybe that's why Carson Wentz felt threatened. Like, yo, this guy is like not a slouch. Like, even though we drafted in the second round, like, he's not so bad.
And you hearing the stories out of training camp this year, I was repeatedly hearing how guys were believing in Hurts and saying he's the guy, and it wasn't just lip service. These were vets who had nothing to gain by saying that this guy looked like the real deal, who were buying in. And
these are guys.
You hear a guy like Zach Ertz who goes from wanting out to saying he's having the most fun he had playing football in a long time. And he won a Super Bowl here a couple years ago.
These are guys.
And this was the most fun he's had in a long time.
Late in their career, who won, just like you said, won a Super Bowl, who are like, hey, you know what, this guy's special. I want to hang around. I want to hang out around, for a little while longer. Let me play with this guy. Let me help make this guy. Let me help make this guy great. Let me play a part in this. And honestly, that's probably what Carson saw. Maybe Carson Wentz saw that, hey, you know what? I understand that the lip service and the story is that we drafted this guy to be a backup. This guy ain't no backup. You give this guy an opportunity to start, he's going to make the most of this opportunity.
And that's all you ask, right?
And
you ask when you tell him to come in last season, like, just give us your best, whatever that may be. It can't be worse than what we already have. So just play your game. And if it works, it works. If it doesn't work, then hey, we'll fix it in practice and we'll try to fix it the next week.
Hey, look, man. All I can say is Jalen Hurts shut up a lot of Carson apologists. A lot of people who might not have been sure about Jalen, he quieted them. Now, can he take that momentum? Can he take that momentum into week 2? You got San Francisco coming into town. They're coming off. Let's see. I mean, they beat Detroit, but it's Detroit.
No, they barely escaped that one.
And Detroit made their way back into that game, made it interesting at the end.
So my question to you is, how confident? Now we're here. How confident are you guys with this team? What you saw this week, coming home and playing a San Francisco team?
Confident.
Yeah,
On
one of
a, on
those.
a on a scale of 1 to 10, I'm at a 5.
Okay.
Like that, the talent's there, they've got potential, but like I said, the question of consistency, which was my big question from the start, can't be answered in week 1. I need to see sustained over multiple weeks before I can answer that question.
In
And until,
execution.
so until I see that cleaning up the penalties, that sort of thing, and consistent play from the quarterback, I'm at a 5. There's some talent there. That it's a solid team, but I don't know yet. I'm not going to jump out the window and say this is a great team. There's a lot, definitely talent there.
This is a good team, and I think honestly, you know, I know it because you and I, the three of us, we joke around, we talk football pretty much all day. I sit there, I'm watching the game, I'm on Twitter, and I'm in the group chat with the two of you guys. So of course, you know, I throw in as soon as the Eagles took the lead, I'm sitting there like, all right, this team's going to the Super Bowl. This team's winning it all. Jalen Hurts MVP. But that's jokes.
I'd say he got to revel in the jokes. Revel in the
I
jokes.
got to, you know, that's jokes.
You got to feed his jokes. Just feed
Yeah,
the jokes.
you know, exactly. Those, you know, that's one thing. That's, you know, that's one thing. But realistically, talking realistically, I'm still looking at an NFC East that's not that great. And there's not, and I don't know if there is a team that I think is just head and shoulders above the rest. Dallas is sitting in last place. Washington didn't show.
Dallas is sitting in last place, but let's be real, they just lost to the champs, and they didn't play poorly.
Didn't play poorly, but it's like
they lost to Tom Brady in them. Yeah. A lot of people lose to Tom Brady in them.
Well, that's true too. Not the Eagles.
Not
the Eagles, but nonetheless, you know, Washington didn't show anything today. Washington looked like some doo-doo.
And Ryan Fitzpatrick had suffered the hip injury. We'll have to wait and see how serious that is, if and when he'll be able to return. But
Giants got cooked.
Well, we know the Giants ain't good.
Yeah, but
they'll be on the quarterback market next year.
Yep.
The point is that all you want from your NFL team is a spot at the table. Is it? And if this team can improve on what they showed this week, they should at least be in line for a spot at the table. That's all I'm asking. You know, I'm not, you know, the Super Bowl talk, jokes. That's humor. That's me, you know, just going over the top with it. But playoff team, maybe. You know,
competing for a division,
maybe.
Compete for a division. Compete for a division in a division that might not be that good. And all you want is a spot at the table. It's week 1. You're going into week 2. You have a home game against a team that went out there against an team and play like I mean, look, that might not be the analysis that you get on the NFL Network. I know I don't sound like Brian Baldinger right now, but that's what they did. That's what happened. You know, San Francisco went out there, went to Detroit, and eked out a win. Now they have to fly home, only to come back to the East Coast next week against a team with momentum.
And that San Fran team's banged up because I think they lost Jason Verrett possibly to a torn ACL, and then Raheem Mostert got hurt. So I mean, you're dealing with a team that's going to be banged up, but still poses problems and issues for this Eagles team. Like, they're going to get a constant dose of George Kittle next week. Like, there's no bones about it.
Meanwhile, the same Chargers team that beat the Redskins this week are home next week against Dallas.
That should be interesting.
There is a chance, and We can do this because we're the fans. Team can't do this. We can do this. There's a chance you're looking at Dallas week with the 2-0 Eagles team against an 0-2 Cowboys team.
I mean, if it comes to that, I mean, the pressure is going to be on Dallas at that at that point. The pressure is going to be on Dallas, and they can't lose to a rookie head coach and a quarterback that's only got what would that be? 7 career starts when that game is under his belt. Like, it'll be a lot of pressure if that happens, and if it comes down to that situation scenario. And I think the Giants and Washington play each other this upcoming Thursday. So you're looking at a game where somebody might be 0-2 going into week 3.
Exactly. And that's all you need. Let's build up this momentum. I don't know where this is gonna last. I'm not
enjoy the ride for what it's worth.
Exactly. All right, look, we will talk more NFL this week on the Jonesy and Brown podcast. Make sure you download that podcast and everything else we do. Just search BITW Sports, search Best in the World Sport, wherever you get your podcast from. Follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at BITW Sports and at Jonesy and Brown. You could also get Javon offered at DKNation.com, right?
Yes.
DKNation.com, and follow him on TotalSportsLive.com. Mike Jones, any final thoughts?
Don't jump out the window.
I'm on the bottom floor. I'm ready to go. I can do it.
You're on the ground floor.
I'm on the ground floor, and I'm jumping on Super Bowl. I'm calling my travel agent tomorrow. Javon Alford, final thoughts.
It was a very good start to week 1. Like Mike said, there's a lot of things that that they can clean up from and they can learn from. Especially tackling. That has to be addressed ASAP. Yes. You don't want to see a bunch of broken arm tackles against a team like San Fran that likes to run the football a lot, or you could be in an ugly situation. So, I mean, it was a good start. The building blocks are great. I think, just specifically on just looking back at the offense again, to see the young players step up and start to show that glimpse of what could be when they become more polished in their skill set, I think is really, something to behold, because this was a team for a minute that went through, the Josh Huff era, the Jordan Matthews era of like young wide receivers that really, they didn't pan out necessarily and weren't that explosive skill maker that you lacked for many years. And now it seems like you have a core that includes another late round pick in Quez Watkins. And we talk about late round picks, another one. Eagles up in
both worlds. You got your top picks playing, making plays. Then you got your guys at the bottom. Your late round picks.
Kenneth Gainwell, a 5th round pick. So I mean, they somehow find the talent.
All right, it's there. We'll see. Well, look, we're going to try and be with you guys after every Eagles game, so we'll be back next week to talk about the Eagles and the 49ers here on the Green Over Everything podcast. Remember, Jonesy and Brown, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Follow my man Javon Alford at Javon10 on Twitter. It's always got good stuff. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for hanging out with us, and we will see you guys next week. Peace, y'all.